Relational capital. How mothers curate CEOs inside the living room. They told us that influence requires a corner office, that leadership development happens in boardrooms with glass walls and catered lunches, that the architects of the next generation of executives are consultants with MBAs and keynote fees. The data tells a different story. The most powerful talent incubator in the global economy isn't LinkedIn Learning. It isn't Harvard Business School. It's the living room. And the strategist behind it, a mother who understands something the corporate training industry has spent billions trying to replicate. Relational capital compounds differently than financial capital. This is not about parenting advice. This is about recognizing that the home has become the last frontier of unmonetized economic architecture. While venture capital chases the next SaaS platform, the most sophisticated form of human capital development is happening at kitchen tables, in car rides to school, in the 15 minutes before bedtime when a child asks a question that rewires their understanding of the world. You are not raising children. You are curating the cognitive infrastructure of future CEOs. And the framework you're using, whether you've named it or not, TI's, worth more than most corporate leadership programs. Let me explain why. The collapse of institutional trust and the rise of the domestic HQ. We are living through the quiet erosion of legacy institutions. Universities are being questioned for ROI. Corporations are hemorrhaging talent to remote work and fractional consulting. The traditional pathways to leadership climb the ladder, earn the title, inherit the corner officer dissolving. What's replacing them? Relational ecosystems built on trust. And trust, at scale, is expensive. It requires time. It requires presence. It requires the ability to observe micropatterns in behavior and respond with precision. This is not something AI can automate. It's not something a quarterly performance review can capture. This is the work you do every day. When you notice that your child shuts down after criticism but responds to curiosity, you are building their resilience architecture. When you model how to navigate conflict without escalation, you are teaching negotiation. When you let them fail at something small so they learn to recover, you are installing the operating system for risk tolerance. These are not soft skills. These are the foundational competencies of executive leadership. And they are being installed in the home, not the classroom. The difference: you have something no institution can replicate. Longitudinal intimacy. You see the pattern across years. You know when they're lying. You know when they're scared. You know when they're testing a boundary because they want you to hold it, and when they're testing it because they're ready to expand. This is not observation. This is curation. And curation, in business terms, is asset management. The mechanism: relational capital as leverage. Here's what the corporate world is starting to realize. The most valuable currency in a knowledge economy is not information. It's interpretation. Anyone can access information. What separates high performers from everyone else is the ability to interpret context, read subtext, and make decisions under conditions of ambiguity. This is not taught in lectures. It's modeled in relationships. You are modeling it every time you translate the world for your child. When you explain why their friend might have acted a certain way, you're teaching emotional intelligence. When you help them reframe a failure as data, you're teaching strategic thinking. When you hold space for their confusion without rushing to fix it, you're teaching executive presence, the ability to sit with discomfort and still make a decision. This is relational capital in motion. And here's the leverage point most people miss. Relational capital scales exponentially, not linear. One conversation at the right moment can shift a child's entire trajectory. One boundary held with clarity can install a decision-making framework they'll use for decades. One moment of you choosing not to solve their problem, but instead asking them what they think can teach them: self-sovereignty. This is not passive. This is strategic architecture. The corporate world spends millions trying to build cultures of trust, accountability, and innovation. You are building it in real time, with no budget, inside the constraints of your living room. And the ROI is measured not in quarterly earnings, but in the quality of the human being you're shaping. This is not sentimentality. This is long-term asset development. The empathy arbitrage. Why your advantage is structural. Let me introduce a concept I call the empathy arbitrage. In financial markets, arbitrage is the practice of exploiting price differences between markets. You buy low in one place, sell high in another, and profit from the gap. In the relational economy, there is a massive arbitrage opportunity that most people don't see. The gap between information and understanding. The world is drowning in information. Parenting blogs, TikTok, psychologists, AI chatbots that can answer any question. But information without context is noise, and context without relationship is theory. You have both. You have the ability to observe your child in hundreds of micro-interactions. You see how they respond to stress, how they process rejection, how they negotiate with siblings, how they react when they're proud, or ashamed, or confused. This is longitudinal data that no app can collect, and it gives you an unfair advantage in shaping their executive function, their emotional regulation, their decision-making frameworks. This is not intuition. This is pattern recognition at scale. And here's the economic insight. The market is only just beginning to value this kind of intelligence. Companies are now hiring chief empathy officers. Leadership programs are being redesigned around emotional intelligence. Recruiters are screening for resilience and adaptability more than technical skills. You have been building these capacities in your children since birth. You have been running a high-touch, high-context leadership development program from your living room, and the world is about to realize that this kind of work, this kind of curation is worth more than most corporate training budgets. This is not unpaid labor. This is structural leverage. The asset upgrade, professionalizing the domestic HQ. Now let's talk about infrastructure. If you are running a high-stakes operation from your home, you must respect the environment. Not for aesthetics, not for Instagram, for cognitive sovereignty. Your brain reads your environment as a signal. A cluttered desk signals chaos. A silent room signals focus. A tool that feels intentional signals that what you're doing matters. This is why I use a Leuchtturm 1917 master notebook. Not because it's beautiful, though it is, but because when I open it, my brain understands. This is where strategy lives. This is not a grocery list. This is not a place for scattered thoughts. This is the physical architecture for long-term planning. I use it to map out the year, to track patterns in my children's development, to document the questions they ask and the frameworks I want to build into their thinking, to plan conversations the way a CEO plans board meetings with intention, with structure, with outcomes in mind. This is not journaling. This is strategic documentation. And when I sit down with it, in the 15 minutes I carve out before the day begins, I am not finding time for myself. I am entering my headquarters. The tool doesn't create the focus, but it signals to my brain that focus is required. And in a home filled with noise and interruption, that signal matters. You don't need this specific notebook, but you need something that marks the boundary between reactive mode and strategic mode, between responding to the day and architecting it. This is capital expenditure. This is investment in your operating system. And if you are building something that will compound for decades, you must treat your tools and your environment with the seriousness that reflects the scale of what you're building. The vision. You are not staying home. You are headquartered here. Let me reframe what you are doing. You are not just a mom. You are the architect of a long-term human capital strategy. You are not sacrificing your career. You are building something that scales beyond any single company or title. You are not stuck at home. You are operating from a position of strategic advantage. The living room is not a limitation. It is your unfair edge. Low overhead, high trust, longitudinal access. The ability to shape the cognitive and emotional infrastructure of a human being during their most neuroplastic years. This is not domestic labor. This is executive-level curation. And the world is about to wake up to the fact that the people who understand relational capital, who know how to build trust, model resilience, teach interpretation, and hold space for complexity are going to be the most valuable operators in the economy. You are not waiting for permission to lead. You are leading now. From the kitchen table, from the car, from the living room floor. This is not the absence of ambition. This is ambition at its most sophisticated. You are not just raising children. You are curating CEOs. You are installing the operating systems that will run companies, lead movements, and shape industries. And you are doing it from the quietest, most underestimated place in the economy. You are not just staying home, you are headquartered here. Disclaimer: this content is for educational and informational purposes only, and does not replace consultation or assistance from a professional. Always consult a qualified professional for any questions related to finance, business, or investments.